It is late September 2023. We are in an old pilot station on an island outside of Torrkulla in Finland. The other day in the evening, when it had gotten dark, we went out from the station. We could see some lights. There were some lights in the cabins, so some people were still staying here. Maybe it's their last days of staying on this island as cabin guests for this season, but they will surely return next year. Outside of the station house, there was a path. Well, it was kind of a path. Most of it was rocks and some tall grass and lots of sheep shit. But we stumbled on the path. When we look up to the dark sky, we could see that it wasn't kind of dark. There were light beams sweeping up above us. And when we passed the corner of the house, the station house, and turned to the right, we could see where the beams came from. It was the old lighthouse. And it was really a beautiful sight. Usually lighthouses have one beam of light that sweeps all across around the lighthouse, illuminating the sea and showing the way for boats. But this lighthouse didn't have one beam, but 20 beams. So the light looked like it was sort of a crown, or maybe a disco ball, a really large disco ball. And we spent a lot of time during that evening to just look at this spectacle of light in the autumn night. Welcome to the Invisible Cities podcast. My name is Joakim Jocki Finnholm.
And my name is Anneli Holmström.
And today's guest is
Göran Torrkulla.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The other day we talked about a little bit about studios where we work and produce our art, and that can be very different for different artists and an interesting place. You said that you like to work there alone and not have many visitors, but I think Anneli, you usually used to having visitors, and you work in a place where there's a lot of other artists.
Yeah, I think for me, where I work, I have a studio where I can shut the door, but there's also a space where you can gather and talk. But I think when we were discussing the other day, if I understood right, because we were talking in Swedish, that perhaps creativity maybe needs a certain space of isolation. And I was kind of interested in your thoughts on the limitation or the limits of how much isolation is needed. And of course, your artwork is meeting an audience as well. So I guess this is more of a question of like when you're producing, at what point, how much isolation is needed for you to be creative?
For the first thing, I normally don't use the concept of isolation. And I would start not from the atelier as such, but say doing arts. For me, an artist does art, is a human being making art for other human beings. And for me, everything that people, I want only to hear what the reactions of people when I show my work of art. But during the work on it, I don't want any premature comments, because if I'm not myself ready with the work, it would disturb my way of reaching what I'm trying to achieve. So, but it's so. In that sense, I invite people to have a certain way of thinking or looking or experiencing with the ready work. And normally for me, it's not isolation. I would rather say that I prefer to work in solitude without any disturbing moments. And some year I could have music in the atelier, something I like. But then, of course, I don't paint the music, but it's something that suits my way or the topic I'm working on. But then other times I don't want any sound at all. And say, for instance, that this I have as a young man. Then I have been in kind of collective space with many. I had partly a part for myself. That, for instance, where you got water was on my side, so there was always running people, and nothing wrong with that. But just a question like. What are you doing? I don't mind about comments on the. I could outside the atelier. I could tell people what I'm working on.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
yes,
strange. Yeah.
that does not disturb me. But because they have nothing to put their finger on and ask what do you mean with that. I can just describe my idea, but. Let me take an example from. I mean, when my daughter was small, she would be with me at the atelier. I mean, really small. And then I was then painting. Nowadays, I have not done that so much. So I was staying, of course, at the Staffli. But then I had a chair, and so my daughter stayed on the chair, and then I have made a Staffli for her too. And sometimes she made something that looked what I made, and other times what she herself made for her own ideas. But when I got stuck in my painting and my hand didn't find its way, I very often asked my daughter, what do you think about this? And of course she had no aesthetical theories or idea of art, but she would ask, why the there, Papa? And put her finger. And very often it was unfinished part, and when she put her finger there, it helped me. Oh, I must do something there. But that was because she had no, and she didn't ask me to explain. Quite okay, remember that. But I mean, if you had artists or grown-up people and so on, very often I don't want to explain.
Yeah.
That's why I want to stay by myself.
But why don't you want to explain? What happens when you
because
explain?
For my point of view, the work of art tells itself, and if it does not tell anybody anything, then I have not managed to make a work of art that tells itself. If I must be there beside it and tell, you look also, remember, and there are layers that are hard to see and so on. No, it must be there for people to. And on the other hand, I mean, I have rather meditative work sometimes, and people have asked, "Are you religious?" Say no. Honestly, to say I'm not a believer, but I experience it in some way religious. Then I used to say, what comes to me. For me, you are totally allowed to see as much God in my works as you want, because I don't decide what. I don't want to decide what people see there, but I'm just, but what I learn something about myself, depending on all those reactions when I get reactions on my ready work.
Right. Yeah. That's a different thing.
Yeah, and that can affect what I will be doing later on. But on my way to the work, one specific work, but I don't want any company. But that's me, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I can relate to that. I think it's also got something to do with visual language is really different from speaking.
Yes, yes. Yes, and I mean, that goes partly sometimes for literature too, but I mean, in writing you use language. But I mean, even if I could not talk, I could paint.
Yeah.
So I can't. So in that sense, it's a medium that can't be reduced to words. So if sometimes you read very fine descriptions and meditations and inspirations that comes from visual arts, but they add something rather to the picture than explains what it is. So, and I could look at the picture without any comment. If it's, even if it would not be a good picture.
Yeah.
But perhaps what you were talking about of this process that needs to happen before you get to the end point, maybe it's about having a private logic that isn't interrupted, or...
Yes, because until I'm quotation mark satisfied with the picture, until then I have not developed any expression that I could stand for.
Yeah.
So, but of course, if the ready work and somebody asks, what do you mean with it? I most often only describe sources of inspiration, things I alluding to, and so on. But I say, I'm satisfied myself with the way I brought these things together. But it's up to you. You are free to decide what it means for you. And I won't tell you what it means for me, because it could sometimes be so individual, what importance, that it would not reach you, or my work would not open itself for other people. Let's say that I felt like that, and that's why I made it. Then I would force others to try to take my position and have my experiences, and that's not the point. I don't want to reproduce my experience in anybody. I want to create an invitation to experience things that are independent of me, what comes to the ready expression. But of course, it would not look like it looks without my experiences. But I mean, I can't have your experiences. I mean, concretely. You can tell me and so on. And sometimes I would say, oh, I would be happy if I had experienced that. Other times I would say, I really don't want those experiences. and I want to keep this psychological, I mean, stepping into the into the boots of it, and that's not my view on art. I want something else to happen than what have happened to me, and to me happens something different when I get the reactions on the ready work. So in that sense, there is. So I get it's a dialogue, even if it's not face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, and doing like editing work with videos or something like this, I find it annoying to show a half-edited thing, and that's something you have to do every now and then.
Yes, yeah.
And even if I tell it, okay, this is not ready edited yet, and it's not color corrected, and so on, the sound is not there, then I usually get the same comments like, "Oh, is it going to look like that with the colors?" No, it's not color corrected yet, and there was some sound missing. Yeah, the sound is not there. So it's even if you tell that, never mind those things, they are not there still. But it's usually something that gets commented on every time. It gets a little bit annoying. So I reluctantly also show like half edited things to people.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I don't know if it's so common today, but as a young man, I remember it was not at all unusual that, especially also novel writers would say it's dangerous to tell anything about ideas because then I lose them. It's not that feeling. I could talk about I could even tell what I will start after Christmas as a conception. But I mean, as soon as I had stepped into making it real, then I keep people out until it's ready.
Yeah.
And then it's I think that certainly there could be other kind of artists that really really do it the contrary way. I find their way by asking, "Would you be nice and come over and look?" And I mean, I have colleagues that sometimes while they are making something, they could phone me, for instance, say, you used to say very interesting things about art and you're a philosopher. Would you mind coming and give me a comment? Because I'm a little bit stuck. And I do it, but then, but only when they ask it.
Yeah.
I don't go around and tell, I think you should. And I mean, this is, and that's why I always also stopped, konstrundan.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was also open. But I did not mind about all the odd questions people asked me. For instance, I have a very odd, let's say almost it looks chaotic in my atelier. Yeah. And that's my way of keeping ordering.
Yeah.
And I don't want to at all explain why it looks like that. And then I get questions. How do you manage to do anything in this? And I don't even mind to say that this is how I manage to do something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is another aspect of it. That, in that sense...
Maybe it depends on the kind of feedback you get. I mean, when you have friends that call and ask about a project, or maybe it needs to be the right people to dialogue with about your work, or have a certain understanding, or know what you're going for.
Yes, but, actually the only stage where I ask for direct advice, it's when I have ready works, and I very often plan rather carefully for the gallery. I mean, I have sketches of this there and this there, and I have been measuring the whole room and so on. But then I rather often even I ask some of my artist colleagues to join me by hanging it, because if just not only keeping it so I can look how it looks, but also I mean, especially one friend is very good on this, that I take with me more works than there is room for, to be able to have the possibility of choosing.
Yeah.
But then kind of satisfied with what I have done, and I would want to show all I took with me sometimes.
Yeah.
Then it's very healthy to say, oh, please, Göran, leave those to the next exhibition. It looks much better if we give a little space for.
Yeah.
In that kind of advice I really
Because the work is already
welcome.
made and it's an editing
Yes.
process.
And then we are not discussing in each, but how to present those works that are moving along a specific theme.
Yeah.
This is maybe a more abstract question. I'm not sure if it's even. But how do you know when you're satisfied with a work?
I would say that when I start to feel that if I do anything more, I destroy everything that I have done. So then, when I have the feeling that this is at least worth saving, then I stop, because I sometimes go too far with any work, and I'm not. I mean, that is kind of accident. And sometimes I really feel annoyed of having destroyed something that could have, because when you try to do it again, it's not easy to reproduce.
No.
But when is going too far for you? I mean, maybe you'd have to think of a certain work or.
When I say, for instance, start to bring in, become, if it start to turn into some kind of explanation, or are adding layers that are unnecessary, and I just think that because I arrived at this idea from there and there and there. And there I'm quite of the same meaning as Marx says, that the way you discover things, you should not write about them in the order you discovered them, but in the way that the one that you tell it to understand what it's all about. Because somebody could start there, and I start here, and so on. So the start is not important, but but what I have achieved, as it were, principal way to achieve it. So it's not the very individual trigger, but rather to find a way to lead the onlooker onto what I want to say.
Yeah, and I feel it's same with editing, really. You have to edit it so it becomes a film or a story that you understand. You can't just edit it in the way, usually in the way it was filmed or anything. You have to find the right order of it.
And I mean, that's somewhere I get the feeling, I would almost call it rather magkänsla than a feeling in the head that if I make a more obvious structure, then I destroy what I want to say. And that would be a little bit the thing you brought up, to keep a certain openness in the structure. I mean, I also used to think that it's important, independently of how I arrive to something and what my expressions or experiences and how I express them. I think work of art works best when I leave space for the reader or space for the onlooker, that I don't put everything of me in it. So you would have to turn to Torrkulla to be able to see it. I want to leave something that is not Torrkulla, or totally open.
Yeah.
So one can step into the work.
Do you know how to do that? Or
No experience. I mean, saying afterward I know if I have succeeded, and sometimes I get that kind of, not complaints either, but that I get that kind of reactions that I can very easily convince myself that I really did not succeed to express or lead to get people to feel what I think what I wanted. Then I don't do it again. So I can't beforehand decide. But then one must take the risk of then showing. But so that's I think that is one way of how I at the same time learn something about myself, because if I notice that I don't manage to convey my idea, then I don't complain and say, oh, the public does not understand me. I rather really think I have not managed to make myself understandable.
Yeah.
And then I look over the work again. And very often I found out, sometimes I can add something, sometimes I quite concretely paint it all over and use the material to something else.
what motivates you to share work with other people? Do you know?
I mean, as I said, we are social beings, and as I quoted Fichte yesterday or was the other day. I mean, it's only in living together with other human beings that I become and can stay human. And art, expressing oneself with art is one. It's not the way, but one of the ways. Because I think it's quite spontaneous that we want both to make ourselves understood, and we want to understand others. And to understand each other, it demands communication, being together, dialogue, and so on. I mean, you know this so-called Kaspar boy, that 1700, that was put out in the woods in south of France. No. Yeah, but a real human boy. Mm-hmm. And he never learned there was a physician that took care of him, and good care. But it was found about, was it maybe about 10 years? Anyway, he never learned to talk, he learned to write. Why did he not learn to talk? Because he could only give sounds from the nature. Yeah. And the whole voice apparatus developed in foreign circumstances. Yeah. And then it could not adapt the way you have to pronounce and.
But he learned to write.
He learned to write, yeah, because it's not dependent. Mm. I can say glass. I can point that in, and then I take your paper and GLAS. Mm. So then he learned to, when he wanted something, for instance, he would write glass. Then you take a glass. And he probably then also, I don't recall the details, learned to understand the word glass, but he could not pronounce it. He could not learn to talk. and of course not either right in a way, in that sense, to express himself more in practical terms. But anyway, I mean, that's why I don't. I'm not so interested in the concept of isolation, because I mean, my point is not that I don't feel alone or isolated or anything when I work by myself at the atelier, because I'm not. I have my background is common human background, and I return all what I've got from there via my artwork back to people. So in that, I don't even. I mean, of course, that's another thing, that some people are not just interested in expressing oneself in a certain artistic media, but people that never want to meet anybody and never want to talk with anybody, they are not normal human individuals. If I say it a little bit crude.
Yeah, but it's
because I mean, think also this one. I mean, more, and it's very common. One here reports of how the problem and how people feel lonely in towns, for instance.
Yeah.
Feel lonely and don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So then so often you try to escape being alone by going out seeking or turning to other people. And other times you don't feel at home with people, and then you try to be alone or avoid. But normally people, I mean normally in the normal commerce, I mean we don't want to stay too long away from other. But that's quite another question.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. I think that was something very evident during COVID. I work at Yrkeshögskolan Novia, and even if we had shut down the school, and at the end of the lockdown, people started appearing there. Workers and some students came in, like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing?" So people really wanted, at the end of that, wanted to meet other people.
Yeah, I would also say that it showed that by nature we don't want to be isolated per principle.
No.
And I recall also our research seminars that when they started again, for many years the whole place was full with people, because those that normally don't come just because they are too lazy, they all were there because we could be together.
Yeah.
So I mean, so in that sense, I don't think that I need any specific motive to. It's the only thing that is that not that I mean I really enjoy to talk with people, so it's not that. But I mean that I want to do it via art. That is my need. But not the need to reach people as such. I mean, I think that is. Then we have different ways in which we stay in contact with each other and make ourselves understood or express ourselves. And all the different methods or ways are, I think, as interesting. And it's even a good thing that we don't express each other in the same way. I mean, because we are individuals.
Yeah.
And that's of course. I mean, when I say that I prefer to during the work process do it alone, it has nothing to do with this Harald Bloom's anxiety of influence.
Okay.
Because I know. I mean, art is always partly made with art as background too. I mean, when artists are introduced to the profession by acquainting oneself with what is done before and
The other art.
yeah, and the whole field. but this anxiety for influence is then again. So that's not. But say, if I'm preparing an exhibition, then I normally don't immediately before, say, some month before the exhibition, I don't normally go to other art exhibitions. Because if there is something that I really like, then I have not time to let it go via me. So then I could to allow the influence to go unfiltered, as it were. So that's but to pick up and get influences. That's why I need the time to be by myself to eat this life. I don't know the English word. Really dwell upon the whole influence and ask myself in what I myself can do of it, if it's something I appreciate. But Bloom's idea was that, and there are, of course, that kind of artists too, that they want to have even, and nowadays the knowledge about art history has also changed a little bit. That, and I found asking, no, but I want to be independent and do just as I myself want. But it's not so obvious that keeping away from influences makes you original. Rather, that I've often noticed that people that stress this independence, then I see their works, and then I can remind myself that, yeah, as a matter of fact, this kind of work I've seen many times.
Yeah.
And then, in art schools, I often say that it's good to look through history or even what is made today around us, because it's not at all nice to notice that I make something that everybody else has already made. So, if for no other reason, it's good to be aware of what is happening. Yeah. But also to get a lot of interesting ideas, interesting solutions, and so on. So I mean so my point is not to keep away from influence, not keep away from people, and not even keep away from colleagues, but because I want myself only to take the responsibility for my works, then I don't want to have anybody mixed into it. Or because I don't think, or my way of thinking, I can't share the responsibility with somebody else. So rather I prefer that people are not satisfied with me. then, and because then taking that I really take the whole responsibility and blame or its success. Then I learned something about myself, but say that we were two. Then there are two sources for the product or the end result. And working together, I mean, then it's not always, one doesn't even know what came from me and what came from the other one. And of course, I mean, if they manage to do, and kind of both, so I don't say that it's impossible to.
But there's less awareness of the decision making.
Yeah,
also.
I think, or at least it takes other form. But for me, it's. I think, or let's say like this, that this being alone and allowing things to take time, it's always also a part of that. I think that I really give myself time and my idea to mature and myself to kind of grow into the idea and not show it before I think it has reached working expression, because I can have my small ideas and so on, and I can myself very well know what I mean. But if I show you the small sketch, often I make only very small. Then what is that? And because you have to work that. Then I want to make because I know the ideas. Then I want to give it such a form that you don't need to ask. Then that's it. Then it's quite another question. If you say, "Oh, I can't stand your works," but then I learn something about the difference between me and you. Yeah. So I mean, in that sense, it's not. Of course, it's not a philosophy of art. For me, it's then also more existential question. I mean, it's, and in a certain sense, one could say that in art, art is not only about aesthetics. There is always a dimension of ethics, taking responsibility for the expression, and I want to keep them both. Or my way of keeping the awareness of responsibility alive is to be by myself when I do the work, and that is just my solution. I mean, you can keep up the ethical dimension in many different ways. So it's no.
Is the ethical?
It's no rule for how one should behave, but and I have seen a lot of other successful ways, but they are not ways for me. That's so simple. And I would not even say it's the best way. It's the only. It's just I haven't found any better way for me.
But this ethical responsibility of art, or is that something that you think about in the studio, or is that something you think about once the work is made? And
no, I start. It comes already when I get the idea, and I choose the motive or the thing I want to consider. I mean, of course, I mean the aesthetical point of view. I'm never sorry if people say you make very beautiful works, and often people have even said it. I mean, that's quite okay. But then let's say, a little bit more like a Platonist, that I think that the beauty should just beauty is a way of trying to make an ethical point, rather that way. But I mean, to be contact with or dwell on ethical questions, it does not exclude that it is beautiful.
I have a hard time. I see them as two different things, but maybe they're not beauty and ethics. I mean, how do you understand that there's an overlap? Or
no, they are different dimensions, but they are not isolated dimensions. For instance, Plato says that beauty is the harmony between virtues. That is an ethical definition of the beauty. And he does not say that, and he does not mean beauty in another sense than we mean beauty. But he says the worth, the value of beauty, he connects to how it furthers the balance of virtues in your personality or your life. And I mean, not in that sense Platonist in the idealist sense, but I mean, when it comes to concepts, I would say something like that. That for me, I don't think that they exclude each other, or that art can only be about what is appealing or nice or beautiful, just for being beautiful. On the other hand, I don't think that art. I mean, I think that art is the interesting area in human communication, where art can invite others to look at things in a certain way, but not force people to look at that way. While if we talk about some science, I can't argue with the scientist. Say, but I don't like your way of looking at things. Then the scientist says, this is not at all my way. Every scientist, the best of science, says this. But an artist rather should say, oh, I say this. Take it or leave it. And that I call a ethical responsibility. So even if I would say that, like Oscar Wilde, you're allowed to do anything you want if you enjoy it or if it's beautiful. But it's enough if you enjoy it. Even that puts him in an ethical, responsible situation. So I mean, even if you exclude it, you can't be freed from the very fact that you are responsible for, as we are responsible for anything we do.
I guess there can be a danger. I don't know, perhaps if when people argue for funding arts, or why should art be supported? There can often be this ethical question of how useful is this work for society? What is it doing?
Yes, that's true. And for instance, that's rather long ago. I was in a seminar in Turku. The hospital there was enlarged, and then it was a seminar because then they had decided that they will buy a certain amount of art for the different parts of the new part. Yep. And then there was a seminar, and most of there was psychologues and physical scientists about färglära, what is color studies, but really, and of course philosophers and artists. Only artists, and I happen to be a philosopher, that did not talk about it, that it must be useful. But say psychologists, for instance, said that we have noted that, let's say, green color on the walls make you then you recover sooner than if they are white. And then she added, and if we then get a work of art on the green wall, then probably you will get healthier even more effectively. And that was her argument for getting art there. Right. Because it had that effect. And I really, for the first thing, I don't think that it works in that way. And even if you say you get cancer, you probably, and say you cancer, you can't do anything too. So then it's quite, then you can't say that, yeah, but on those it's no use to show them. They can have a even black room. No. Rather, I would say that it's not a thing that it make healthier or so, but it gives people something to think about, and opens open the attention to other things than, for instance, only being very occupied with sickness. But that is not a practical use, but it's, I would say, that's the interesting thing with art, that it can open a universal thought and feelings that that points in quite sometimes even unknown directions. And in that sense, gives space for other attitudes or deepens one's understanding or something like that. But I mean, to say, and that I think one is responsible to know that art has effects, but not any specific effect. So, in that sense, in that sense, it's not, should not be looked at as a tool for some to achieve something that is outside art. Okay. Yeah. But that does not mean, on the other hand, that one does, as it were, art only for art's sake. That there is no responsibility. Rather, I would say that art, there is, so it does not make us better people or good people. But what I think the worth of it is to keep certain questions alive, certain possibilities alive, independently if they are practical or not, or serve this or that. So there one could say that the manifoldness of different views is like biodiversity in the nature, that it's good for us that there in the field of arts we open up to aspects that we exclude very often in the everyday life, and for practical reasons or economical reasons and so on, or political reasons. And I mean, that would be a short way for me to say what the responsibility of art is, that really to keep questions alive. And that's more than just question things, because it could also be just to show in certain direction. But as I said, that does not, from there it does not follow that art as such make us morally better creatures.
I like this biodiversity idea also.
Yeah, but I mean, because it seems to be very important for life in the nature to be alive. And I would say, and culture is the nature for us. And arts are a very important part. If we would take away everything that is considered art from our culture, we would not enjoy that surrounding very much, even if we now quarrel about what art is good and what art is not. But take away everything, film, poetry, paintings, novels. No, because it's part of what we need. It's food for thoughts, as it were.
Thank you very much for joining the podcast, Göran. We soon have to leave, or we have to hurry, because the last ferry ride from this island is leaving soon. And before that, we need to eat some soup. And the rain outside has cleared now, and the sea outside is calm. So we're going to have a nice ferry ride home on the autumn sea, back to the mainland. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast Invisible Cities. My name is Joakim Jukki.